and welcome to Landscape Photography World, the podcast for everyone passionate about landscape photography. I'm Grant Swinburne and I'll be your host on the show, talking to landscape photographers about their motivations, likes and dislikes. This time, I'm joined by Shane Farmer of sweet.as.fotos to talk about his photography journey and how it has shaped his relationship with the world. Shane's work is varied and covers a range of genres, but he keeps coming back to landscapes and in particular waterfalls. It was this particular passion that saw him involved in an incident which he describes in our chat, one which is a poignant reminder to all of us about the importance of being safe in the field, making sure someone knows where you are going and when you're expected to return. Luckily for us, Shane has survived and recovered from the impact this incident has had, and he shares not only what happened and the aftermath, but also how he works in the field to stay as safe as possible and to capture the amazing work he does. I hope you enjoy the show. G'day, Shane. Welcome to the podcast. How are you going?
I'm well, thank you, Grant. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolute pleasure to have you on board. As I said a little bit earlier, I've been following your work, and I certainly think it's really up there with some of the best I've seen. And very happy that you've agreed to spend a bit of time with us talking about what you do. So why don't you start with how you got started and where, what raised that passion for landscape photography?
Yeah, for sure. And before we start, thank you for that intro. It was really nice to hear. I've seen some other people you had on your podcast, and I do follow them. They're amazing photographers. So just being asked to be here is just a true honour. Okay, so for starters, I got into photography when I was in the Navy. I was an aviation technician and just really I still do, love helicopters and aviation. And I've always had a bit of an eye for photography. I've always looked at something and just thought, I could picture that on a wall, as a poster. And that was back in the film days, of course. We're talking back in late 90s. Had a Pentax MZ50, took rolls and rolls of film and pretty well ruined all of them. I didn't put a lot of effort into learning photography, just put the camera on auto and went to town. Managed to score some great aviation shots, which I'm happy to say I did sell quite a few of when I was at the squadron, and a hell of a lot more than I've actually sold now with a digital camera.
Okay.
So my camera, actually, the motor mechanism inside froze when I went to Franz Josef in New Zealand. Unfortunately, I lost all of my images from that trip and pretty well just gave it up for quite some time until I turned 40, only just a couple of years ago. And I just said to my wife for my birthday, I want a camera again and I want to get back into it. And slowly just started to learn, pieced it together, watching YouTube videos, connecting with other local photographers here on the Sunshine Coast, and the passion just grew from there.
Oh, fantastic. So landscape in particular, is it where you live that's driven that, or is it, the travel that you've done, or is it just something that's sort of come along incidentally?
Basically just come along incidentally. I do live on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland. It's got some amazing waterfalls, beaches, hinterlands. There's so much here to photograph. You can't go wrong as far as landscape photography. I also work in outback Queensland on a defence radar site.
Okay.
Unfortunately, don't get to go away from site that much anymore to explore, and it's a pretty boring landscape. But the skies out in central Queensland, as far as astro, storms, sunsets, are just incredible. Yeah. And now and also a bit of travel as well. Been in New Zealand, Fiji, Indonesia, Singapore, Thailand, and my passion for landscape itself and seascape and pretty much everything that's not portrait photography is what I'm into. I even do a little bit of macro photography. That's something I'd like to get a little bit more involved in, but it's purely just landscape for me. Sure. Waterfalls, I love to photograph a lot.
Yeah, I've noticed that from your feed. Definitely, you've got a passion for waterfalls. I guess, what is it about those sort of scenes that get you going, makes you get up and get out there?
Mate, it's just basically being out in nature and listening to that water movement and just capturing the environment is what I really love. Plus, I can do it during school hours. I've got kids, and some good quality ND filters from Nissi help that a great deal.
Sure.
But I also do fly in, fly out work. And with wife and 3 kids, a lot of my photography is between the school hours.
Yeah.
I find that Waterfalls is the easiest way to do that sort of photography as far as capturing light's concerned.
Right.
I do prefer to get up for sunrise, and do some seascape stuff. But with a family, it's hard to do, especially with
it's a
3
tough
kids.
gig when you've got kids. Yeah.
Yeah, and one of those has moderate to severe autism. So
Okay.
when I'm home, I like to give the wife a good break from the 2 weeks where she does it all by herself.
Yeah.
So, like I said, school hours is a lot of the times what I'm limited to. Can't recommend Nissi filters enough for that daytime long exposures.
Fair enough. So around the Sunshine Coast, I reckon you'd be spoilt for choice, and you can go a little bit further south down into the sort of Brisbane and Gold Coast hinterland as well. And there's plenty of falls there. Are there any that are in particular that you sort of keep getting drawn back to?
Oh, look, my wife says I've got too many photos of Buderim Falls, but it's literally
you can't have
10 minutes from
photos of Buderim Falls.
I agree with you, mate. It's 10 minutes from my house. So easy to get to. But I would really like to get down to Lamington National Park a bit more. I went down there a while ago with another exceptional photographer, Dominic O'Brien, and had an absolute ball. Unfortunately, halfway through the trip, the sun came out and just was too harsh to capture anything decent. So I'd love to head back there again, but a lot of the Sunshine Coast waterfalls are always good, just depending on rain, like anywhere.
Yeah. Well, any waterfall's always going to be dependent on how much water's coming off it. You can have too much sometimes too.
Absolutely. Just the recent flooding that we've had.
Yeah, we've had well and truly too much.
I came back at a good time from my trip away to work because during that time where I actually wanted to be home, I saw some footage and it was just crazy. Like you can't even capture good waterfall photography in those conditions.
Yeah, it's not bad for video, but not much chop for taking a still image. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I guess not just waterfalls, but in terms of your workflow when you're planning a trip, are you thinking about what you want to capture before you go? Are you more ad hoc in terms of your approach to planning and deciding where to go and what to shoot?
Well, with living on the Sunshine Coast for 16 years, I've usually got a bit of a plan of attack. Obviously, you check all the weather apps and the tidal forecast for the day, time of year, the moon phase. And with all the apps these days, I mean, you can really easily plan or, avoid going somewhere and getting disappointed with all the info that you can get there. But, yeah, I generally do have a plan in mind.
Okay, that's cool.
Except for photography, you basically just go and hope for
hope the water's there.
Yeah.
So what about when you get on site and you're in the field and working the space? What are you looking for in terms of your compositions and that sort of relate? And I guess the more important question for me is how does that relate and into your style of work, etc.
Well, I guess for instance, landscape and seascape photography, you're looking at your composition as how much of the sky you want in the image, how much of the foreground you want in it. Like some days you can get there hoping for a banger sunrise and it's just absolute garbage, or there's a tiny bit of colour on the horizon. So I just set my focus for the foreground, hopefully to get capture a nice amount of flow or landscape itself.
Yep.
But just play it by ear when you get there.
Okay, fair enough. So it sounds like you're doing, I guess, more reaction to what's in front of you than sort of going in with a preconceived notion of about what you want to shoot. I mean, obviously you're sort of saying, okay, well, if I go to, Noosa and one of the beaches there and you say, okay, well, this is what I want to capture some flow, that's obviously in your mind. But, are you thinking more in depth about the concept of the image, or are you thinking more about, okay, well, I'm going to play it by ear when I get on site?
basically play it by ear. I mean, a lot of the times I just go out hoping for good conditions. Most of the time I don't get them, and just try and make do with the current scenario when you get there.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's always good to have a preconceived idea or composition of when you get there, but the weather can change things for you. So you just got to make do with the best you can when you get to the place you go.
Yeah, no, I get it. So what are you doing, I guess, to try and capture the images that fit into your style? I guess what are you doing on site, and are you always doing long exposures, or are you trying to mix it up a bit?
I always try to mix it up a bit, but long exposure photography is what I really like to do. There's just something about capturing the stars, capturing waterfall movement, capturing cloud movement. I just find the interesting part of landscape photography, but also just the scene. You can see in the video on the wall behind me is a shot of One Tree Hill at Mullaney. I mean, you can't go wrong with the shot there. Beautiful tree, beautiful landscape, Glasshouse Mountains in the background, and just hope on the day too that you get something decent as far as sky is concerned.
Yeah. So what about processing? You've got your image, and you think you've got a banging sky or whatever. You get home. What are you doing with it? Are you getting straight into the processing area, or are you going to leave it and let it sit for a while, or how do you approach it?
I'm always excited to get home and get the images into Lightroom and Photoshop. I use both pretty well the same.
Mm-hmm.
I have a couple of plugins for Pro Panel. And what else is there? Got me on the spot now. I guess most of the editing is done in Lightroom to start with, and then I will use Photoshop to remove any artifacts, or mostly for sharpening. And I may use the Pro Panel if I'm going to do star stacking for star trails, maybe enhance some foliage, or just try something new. I mean, I think photography is an art, and you can really push some of your images to the limits. And if that's the way you go or decide to do things, then that's totally up to you. I mean, you can really ruin some images with over processing, but as you know, with most images, there is a certain amount of post-processing that has to be done in order for you to show what you're trying to show the viewers, what you saw on the day, because it's not always captured that way in camera.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I do quite a lot of blending myself, so I'm well aware of the amount of effort that goes into some of these images. I guess are you happy to spend a couple of hours on an image, or are you more of the give it 10-15 minutes and that'll do it?
A bit of both, depending on the actual image itself and what I'm hoping to achieve from the outcome. A lot of stuff just gets thrown on social media, and then in a hurry, especially in my early days, oversaturated, horrible images. I look back at them now and I just think, oh my God, why did I do that? But it's all a learning process. As you learn more, you get better. You become pretty well a bit of a Nazi in your own work, a huge critic. A lot of people that follow you or family always say that, oh, your images are amazing. And there's a lot of photographers out there going, oh, well, look at this is wrong, this is bad, you should have done this and that. And now I'm actually going through some images back from my first camera, my Canon, just an entry-level camera. And I've now, with post-processing that I've learned, I've actually, produced some really great images from just a basic camera.
Yeah. And I think that's an important thing to, for people getting into the field and, just entering it. You don't necessarily need to be spending money on the biggest and best and, most amazing piece of kit. I mean, good glass will always make a difference over kit lenses, but even with a kit lens and with a basic entry level DSLR or even a mirrorless, you can still make some amazing images. And I think, it's a really important message that people need to, that are starting out really need to hear.
Absolutely. And there is some really great intelligent software out there to help you with that. I've done a lot of nature photography, particular birds, animals, and difficult situations, you've had to bump up the ISO.
Yep.
Come back home, put it on the screen, and it's just absolute garbage. And I've just recently downloaded Topaz Labs, and what that can do for noisy images and sharpening in general is just crazy. I've got some great images back on my feed now and on my computer that I would have just before thrown out, would have just totally discarded and not even gone back for a second look.
Yeah. I guess how do you obviously using those tools, how do you feel about some of the criticism that gets levelled against those or users of it, and less so against the software itself, but using those AI processing techniques to improve? You do hear occasionally people saying, "Oh, well, it's sort of taking away some of the skill of the photographer and so forth." How do you kind of react to that?
Oh, look, there are some world-class photographers that use that software, so maybe they're being paid to say it. More than likely, I guess. But if they're producing it like a lot of professionals would do for products that they're being paid to, they're putting it out there. Whether or not they use it, that's totally up to them. But as far as criticizing software and people's style of photography, I don't have any time for it, and I don't waste my time dealing with people like that. If you don't like someone's particular style or what they've used or created their image, keep scrolling. A lot of the people that give that criticism out there aren't really all that good themselves, and for them to sit back and criticize other people behind their keyboard, I find is just pointless and a waste of time.
Yeah. No, I'm totally with you on that. It's probably not a massive problem, but it's something that certainly I've seen a little bit of, and occasionally you get that. The obvious one is, is that photoshopped? Well, yes, of course, that's how I process my images.
Yeah, or is that a filter? It's like,
is that a filter? Yeah.
When you say is that a filter, like they come with your iPhones or your Samsungs, they've got filters in your. But when you say, is it a filter? Well, no, it's just how I produced it later on in Lightroom and Photoshop. Yeah. I mean, if people can say they can only just do raw images, it's like, well, you can really tell the difference between a raw image and one that's been processed compared to what you actually saw on that day.
Yeah. And to be honest, a raw image is exactly what it says. It's raw. It's basically the data that your sensor captured. That's exactly what it is. And, the processing of it is one of the artistic elements, I think, of photography. And I liken it very much to darkroom. You have a look at the Ansel Adams and so forth of the world, who were known for not just doing out of camera images. They were doing people like him and others were doing composites, way back in the darkroom days, with silver acetate plates and so forth, not even film negatives, Yeah. And so, that a lot of what you're doing in software, I mean, okay, a little bit different, some of the sharpening stuff that goes on, with some of the AI programs, but a lot of what you're doing in Photoshop and Lightroom is largely just darkroom techniques being brought into the 21st century in the digital age.
Absolutely. Again, the camera will only expose for the light it's focusing on. And there's so much more to the image, what you see with the naked eye, that people don't quite understand. And that's where that blending process or HDR images comes into play, because you're actually trying to show people what you saw on the day, which you can with an iPhone. I mean, they're great for capturing everything in the one image, but it's you're not going to produce amazing quality images with an iPhone.
Well, even some of those, I mean, some of what's going on there is just kind of AI processing under another guise. You've got you've got video images being used to actually then create a single still image, using certain processes depending on what function you've turned on your phone. So some of those things, like I think it was the Google Pixel, doing blur removal and the ability to remove photo bombers and all the rest of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And you're able to do that now in your phone. It's I don't see the problem with that sort of processing outside.
Oh, 100%. Like you said, I mean, the phones do such an incredible job now, and that's the difficult part with being a photographer these days is getting your work out there, getting recognised, because everyone with a phone in their pocket can pull out a phone or a camera and take a great shot, bang it straight onto social media, and it's out there, millions and millions of images. But separating the difference between an expert image and a phone shot to most people, it's pretty hard to tell.
Yeah, totally. So I guess that leads me to the question around what led you to, I guess, the artistic style that you've sort of chosen, as opposed to, as you said, you could go out with your iPhone if you wanted to and catch similar sorts of images. But, I guess looking at the difference between just capturing an experience and producing what could be classed as a work of art, how do you feel about that, and where do you sort of start from in that process?
Basically, again, as we talked about earlier, I love the long exposure photography, and in order to do that, you obviously need a tripod, a decent camera. There are some pocket cameras or phone cameras that can do those these days, but there is a huge difference in the quality and the output of the image at the end. Using a raw image, absolutely, and the data in a raw image on my camera, the Fujifilm X-T4, is a 50 megapixel image. There's just so much data in it, and depending what you're trying to actually pull out of the image, do with it, that's why you need a better style camera that can do that, as opposed to just a happy snap. You can't capture astrophotography with a phone. Well, sorry, that's not true. You can, but it's. I've seen it, and it's. No, exactly. Yeah, unless it's no bigger than an A4 or 6x4 inch photo.
Yeah, and I think that's an important factor. Is sensor size is obviously going to have a big impact on what you can do in terms of print. And if your end goal is to print, and I certainly encourage everyone I talk to print your work. If you're creating these images just to put on Facebook and whatever, that's great. If that's all you want to do. But I don't think it really looks to me, and maybe it's because I'm an old fuddy-duddy, but it just doesn't look real to me until it's in a physical form.
Yeah, that's something I haven't done a lot of, but I've actually got a couple on a memory stick at the moment that I'm going to head out to Ted's Maroochydore after I finish talking with you and get a couple printed.
Yeah, no worries.
I want to get some more around the house, but trying to get the wife to decide on the right one is the hard part.
Yeah, I have that problem slightly, but and she keeps saying, well, do we really just want it to be an art gallery of your work? And I said, well, I'm happy to buy other people's work if you want, but mine for the cost of printing alone.
Oh, absolutely. Like there's so many good photographers who have produced great images, and you'd think, yes, I could have that on my wall easily. But for me, I would actually like to go and capture that same image, put my own work into it, my own thought process, how I want to see it turn out.
Of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I could actually say that image on my wall when people come to my house is mine, not someone that I've bought it from.
Yeah. So you had a experience recently, which followers that people that follow you would obviously have seen records of. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. When Mother Nature strikes, hey. I was out shooting my favourite place, Waterfalls, as we've talked about, and I was up to my very last shot of the day. And I was actually quite excited this day. I got some really nice new compositions, which, funnily enough, I never thought I could do there. And I was waiting for three ladies to walk through my shot, and I just did a 6-second exposure. Was about to pack up my gear and head home, but obviously had to wait for them to get out of the shot. As I bent down to pick up my camera, I heard a large crack, barely had a chance to react. And next thing I know, I'm being woken up and a large tree's on top of me.
Wow.
And being evacuated from the scene by about 20 emergency services personnel.
Oh, that's incredible.
So, yeah, I ended up with a large gash on the head. Thankfully, those ladies actually were there that day because they came back and rescued me. One of them, the ex-paramedic. They came back to the scene, just basically saw a big heap of mess and a tree and my arm hanging out and a fair bit of blood flowing down the waterfall. So if they weren't there that day, there's a good chance I wouldn't be talking to you right now.
Yeah.
So I'm very fortunate. Like I said, ended up with a massive gash in my head, 5 fractured vertebrae, multiple fractured ribs, scapula, about a third of a collapsed lung, broken leg, all the ligaments in my ankle shattered, and worst of all, lost my camera. I know that can be easily replaced, but bones heal. It was a pretty tragic day.
Did you lose the shots as well, or?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know how this. I mean, Fujifilm make quality cameras, really nice and strong. The XT2 I had, but it it smashed the lens off the actual camera body itself, destroyed the tripod, lost the SD card. It somehow just opened the door and ejected that on me. So, most commonly asked question by everyone besides, "Are you okay?" was, "Did you get all the what images did you get from that day?" And unfortunately, got nothing.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a pretty hectic time. Took quite a few months of recovery. 6 weeks in a wheelchair, 4.5 months off work.
Wow.
But back in the gym and running and everything's good. Took its toll on the family and my poor wife. Unfortunately, she suffered quite a great deal.
I can imagine.
But what surprised me out of the whole thing, Grant, was the photographer community. My good friend George Berg started a GoFundMe page, which I didn't want anything to do with. He started it off and pretty much raised enough money to replace the Fuji with an XT4, a new lens and a tripod.
Wow.
And basically just over $5,000. And money came from all over the place, from my friends, family, a lot of local support from photographers on the Sunshine Coast, Australia, and believe it or not, all over the world from other Instagram pages, which I've never met. But just goes to show just how great the photographer community are and how supportive they are. Like, it blew my mind, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember seeing the GoFundMe campaign doing rounds on Instagram back then, and it was something that I certainly contributed to. But I think the community that sort of forms around photography, people know, or people that do know what the risks are inherent in getting out into some of these. I mean, Butterham's not necessarily particularly remote, but some of these locations have their own risks. I mean, you can get swept off rocks on a rock shelf at Bondi or Coogee here in Sydney.
Absolutely.
So and I think it's absolutely fantastic that the community sort of rallied around and I guess went some way to helping you out.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for your contribution, Grant. There's a lot of people I know that contributed to it, and I haven't had the chance to thank personally because I didn't know who they were, to be honest. But with posts that I put out there, I'm truly grateful for everyone who did support me, and just the messages alone, coming through, messages of support really helped get me through.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
but, like I say, with a lot of my times I go out shooting, got to risk it for the biscuit, but you also got to be really careful because you can end up, badly injured.
So I was going to ask, so where are you with the recovery process at the moment? Are you what you'd call fully recovered medically and everything?
Yeah, 100%. I still receive a little bit of physio for parts of my neck and upper back. But as far as everything else is concerned, still get a little bit of grief in the right ankle, where that basically did a massive spiral fracture of my fibula. I've got a nice big titanium plate there now. doesn't make me feel any stronger, but I'm back running, 5-7 kilometers a day back to where I was. And honestly, I feel great.
No, that's fantastic. And how about any sort of, what if you're getting out into the forest, are you particularly careful about trees jumping on you?
Yeah, no, I do actually look at them in a different way now.
Yeah.
But it was just a crazy accident, like, getting hit by lightning. What's the chances of it happening? I mean, there's a gazillion trees out there everywhere you go, particularly around waterfalls.
Yeah.
But I honestly don't have any PTSD from it. I've been back to Buderim Falls a couple of times since then. What's the chance of it happening again? But I'm definitely keeping a lookout.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. So in terms of, what did you, I guess, learn out of that entire experience? What was the key takeaway that you took away from, the whole thing?
Most importantly, to I guess, just make sure everyone else important to me was okay as well. Like, I'm mentally strong, physically strong. I'm ex-military. Don't let things get me down, but kind of neglected the wife a little bit during the process, and just, I guess, in my own head, trying to get back to getting repaired and recovering. And I didn't actually realize just how much she suffered from it. And I wish I'd put a bit more time into her. I didn't neglect her at all. I just didn't see in the beginning just how much it really affected her. But as far as anything else is concerned, hasn't stopped me one bit. I still love Mother Nature, even though she tried to kill me. And it hasn't stopped me getting back out there and doing what I love doing.
Yeah. Well, man, I know my wife, when I go out for a shoot, particularly early in the morning, and particularly if she knows I'm going to be on my own, she sort of makes sure, I text her when I get there, and I text her where I'm going to be and where I'm going to shoot. And, I stay in that general vicinity as much as I can, Are you doing things like that now that you might not have done before, or?
I always did that, Grant. A lot of the waterfalls on the Sunshine Coast, there is absolutely no reception.
Yep.
And I knew that she would worry, and just for your own safety, it's just smart to, be in contact with people, let them know where you are, how long you intend to be gone for, and when you get back, purely so that they can send help if they don't hear from you.
Yeah, well, that's it. I always give her either a call or a text if I can, whenever I get back to the car and on my way home, just so that she knows what's going on. Because as you say, it's really important that somebody does know where you are, and because something like that could happen at any time, and you're if nobody knows where you are, then no one's going to know where to look.
Yep. I also, in my camera bag, I don't know if other landscape photographers carry it, but I always carry a bandage, face shield, or just a tiny first aid kit. Just, like anything can happen, like it did. And it's likely it could happen again.
Great idea. So I guess in terms of, driving and fueling your passion, do you think it's made it more or less a passion for you, or?
Hasn't affected me one bit, I don't think, Grant. Mother Nature is just so beautiful. I mean, whether it's sunrise, sunset, the stars, the sun, the ocean, the hills, just getting out there and being amongst nature and getting away from the world Wi-Fi and capturing it in its absolute essence is just so rewarding.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I know what you mean. So have you ever come across a creative wall that you've hit in terms of, not being motivated or not being able to, nail a particular composition or something? And how did you handle that?
Yeah, I mean, that happens all the time. Obviously, waterfalls are always affected by rain. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, more often than not, when we get the good downpours at home on the Sunshine Coast, I'm usually out in central Queensland, and it's just hot and dry out here, boring landscape. And I just see everyone's stories and everyone's images, and it just, it bums you, gets you down. And especially when you miss absolute banger sunrises.
Yeah.
You wish you could just be closer to the ocean. You wish you could not miss every single image. But that's for the photography game. You just got to be a little bit creative, and just hope that next time you go out, you get the actual conditions you're after.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that's always the chase, though, isn't it? You might keep going back as you do, as you said before. You keep going back to the same locations because haven't quite nailed it, or there's an angle that you've looked at and thought, oh, I want to take that, but there wasn't the light or whatever, and you're always sort of trying to look for those things to keep you going and move the creative juices on, I guess.
And that's the beauty of having, other photographers in your area. Like there are some amazing photographers on the Sunshine Coast, and I see some of their images of particularly Waterfalls or, places like Coolum and Noosa, and I just think, wow, I wish I could produce that shot. And it just drives me to go out and, try and not get the exact image that they've done, but something very similar. So that's what inspires me to get out there and do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So what tips would you have for someone just starting out in their landscape photography journey about, how to progress and how to, I guess, keep that creative fire going?
Learn. Network with other photographers, get on YouTube. I spent so many images, ruined so many images that are, over-processed, oversaturated, over-sharpened, didn't know what I was doing. And I've seen new people come out and actually take the time to learn, to discover, and just get out there amongst it, and just produce amazing images right from the get-go. So you'll never stop learning photography. There's so much to learn, particularly post-processing, but just get out there, enjoy yourself, and take lots of images. You can always delete them when you get home.
That's right. Yeah. If you don't like them, get rid of them. Yeah.
Absolutely. The beauty of digital photography. Hey, I processed so many films back in the day and just wasted so much money. But these days, it's just too easy to just, take 1,000 shots. And then if you get one or two good ones, then great.
Totally. So what's the thing you like most about being a landscape photographer? Like
I just said to you before, mate, capturing Mother Nature in its essence and in its finest is just the rewarding part for me. Like getting an absolute banging image that you just love and then printing it. I don't do photography to sell images. It's purely just a hobby for me.
Yep.
But getting feedback from other people as well that really like images or would like to purchase one off you, I also find very rewarding.
Yeah, totally.
I've sold quite a few jigsaws with Jigsaw Gallery Australia.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks to COVID, that helped a lot. Just having people enjoy your images as much as you do, or I do, is just rewarding for me, mate. It's just being outdoors with Mother Nature for me.
Yeah, no, I get it. What about the things you like least about being a photographer?
Post-processing.
Really? Okay.
It can be so time-consuming. It's rewarding when you finish with an image and you're totally happy with it, but there's so much time spent on it. It'll be great to just go out, pick out your iPhone, take a shot and produce an absolute banger. But as it just doesn't work that way. And also getting up really early in the morning.
Yeah.
That can also be a bit of a pain, especially in summer for sunrise. You're looking at getting up at 3:30 in the morning.
Yeah, that's always a challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, and to get to where you're going and then it to be an absolute fizzer, it's just a bummer, but that's the game and that's the chase, as you know.
Absolutely. So what do you like to do when you're not out shooting?
Oh, mate, lots. My second biggest passion is fitness. I really like to keep the body healthy and strong, not just for myself, but as you get older, things start to fall and break apart.
Yep.
But also to be a good role model for my children and people around me, and just do stuff with friends and family.
Yeah, nice. Do you think the fitness side of things is important for your photography?
Absolutely, mate. Especially if you're going to get out and go hiking, it's going to take you, quite a lot of time to get to your destination, like Lamington National Park. That's like an 18-kilometre circuit. It's a big day. And I also kind of feel that having my fitness level and strength the way it is, I think that helped me a lot with the tree accident.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people that if we're in the same situation probably wouldn't have fared as well as I did.
Yeah.
But just being healthy, mate. Everything in moderation is what I say.
No, totally agree. So, are there any photographers out there you think I should be talking to on the podcast?
Yeah, mate. Heaps. He's Dominic O'Brien, George Berg, Jasmine Lee. Oh, mate, you stumped me. There's just so many floating through my head at the moment. And that's just the Sunshine Coast photographers.
Yeah.
When you say landscape, there's also, I guess you could think of underwater landscape photography.
Oh, yeah.
There's so many brilliant photographers out there doing that, pure underwater imaging. A lot of overseas photographers. I don't know if you'd be able to get them on your podcast, but
I've had a couple. I've had a bit of luck with a few people. So yeah.
One guy in particular I follow, Isolated Peak Photography.
Okay.
His landscape images over around North America, Canada are just absolute bangers. His name's Ash. He's just top quality stuff, and definitely worth a look if you're on the Instagram.
All right, I'll definitely be looking some of them up. I guess just in sort of wrapping up, I've got one more question, and for many who listen to the podcast, it's the most important question I can ask, and I know it's a big issue in the photography community. Do you like pineapple on pizza?
Absolutely, 100%. Ham and pineapple is just like they go together, like bacon and eggs, like perfect sunrise and a good seascape. Yeah. What about you, Grant? What's your thoughts on it?
I'm in neutral. If it's there, I'll eat it. If it's not there, I'll eat it too. And I probably wouldn't go out of my way to order it, personally, but I know one of my girls certainly likes it, and so if she's got a ham and pineapple pizza there, I'll be taking a slice.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Got nothing against pineapples at all. I'm a Queenslander. Unless it's being delivered by the boss. No one likes to get a pineapple from them. But as far as pizza is concerned, mate, I like all pizza. It doesn't have to have pineapple on it, but I surely wouldn't shy away from a good Hawaiian, I'll tell you.
Yeah, fair enough.
Tough question, mate. I didn't think that one was coming.
Well, it's been absolutely marvellous talking to you, Shane, and hearing your story. Particularly that story about the tree, etc. at Butterham. Where can people find your work?
Mostly on Instagram. I do have a Facebook page, but I kind of over Facebook. I don't get on it very much anymore, so I wouldn't waste your time looking for me there. But if you are on it, go for it. But yes, my handle is sweet.as.fotos, spelt with an F. I do know how to spell photos. Just when I was coming up with a name, that's all I could come up with. There was honestly not much out there.
That's blue.
I post all my stuff on Instagram mostly, a little bit on Twitter, but I'm only just new to that. So and a tiny bit on Facebook. I don't get on Facebook that much anymore, just mostly Instagram.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks, Shane. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll talk again at some point, I hope.
Yeah, absolutely, Grant. And thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute honour. I was so surprised that you asked me to be on the show, but I do truly appreciate it. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Love your work, mate.
Thank you, mate. You too.
Thanks again for listening to Landscape Photography World. I hope you enjoyed the show, and keep listening because I'll be joined by some great guests in upcoming episodes. You can find my work and this podcast at grantswinburnphotography.com. I'm also on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. I'm Grant Swinburne. Hope to see you out shooting soon.